Welcome everybody to the Winter City Council meeting for Monday, June 19th, 2023. This time the City of Winter will implement roll call.
Councilman Clay?
Here.
Councilman Frank?
Here.
Councilman Hockett?
Here.
Councilman Clunt?
Here.
Councilman Schramm?
Here.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Here. If you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, having had time to review your packets, are there any conflict of interest with tonight's agenda? Seeing and hearing none, Chair will move on to consent agenda. Council, is there a motion on tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second to this motion?
I would second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilman Clay has seconded the consent agenda. The floor is open to questions or comment.
Mr. Mayor, for the public's information, the resignations are for Dwayne Engel from Streets and Sanitation, Charles York from Streets and Sanitation, and Dylan Conklin from Corrections.
Noted. Hearing no further comment or question, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Council, having had time to review your packets, is there a motion on this evening's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to approve the agenda as presented. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. Floor is open to comment or question. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. City of Winter now moves on to recognition of visitors and communications. First tonight is public input, and as with all city council meeting, there is a 10-minute window for the public to address the Winter City Council. Is there any public input? Hearing none, Chair will move on to first communication from the Finance Office on the fuel bids.
Fuel bids for 6/14, June 14th, for number 2 dyed-diesel, Schaefer, number 1 dyed-diesel, Vollen, 50/50, Vollen, regular unleaded, Schaefer, propane, it was a tie between both CHS and Schaefer, and fuel oil, Schaefer.
Are we doing a tie?
They both can be used
Yep.
because they're the same price.
As soon as we were notified, we contacted Mr. Jensen from the Finance Office, and he had researched South Dakota municipal law. There is no precedence for it, really.
There isn't.
So the departments are allowed to use either of the winning bid winners. Our next communication
I
is...
still have one more,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
Fuel for June 7th, number 2 dyed-diesel Vollen, number 1 dyed-diesel Vollen, 50/50 Vollen, regular unleaded Vollen, propane, CHS, fuel oil Vollen.
Our next communication for the public is on new hires for the City of Winter. The Finance Office will have that communication.
The only new hire for the past 2 weeks was in Park Cemetery. Donald G. Mays was hired at $22.56 per hour as the foreman for Parks and Cemetery. Full benefits with 6 months probation.
Final communication tonight is the oath of office from the Public Works Director, Troy Kruger. Step. Oh,
Is that Don May Senior?
Yes.
That is-
Well, I guess I don't know if he's seen.
The other one's Christopher, so
I think it's.
Don G and Donald C.
Yeah.
Oh,
Donald Christopher.
okay.
So this is not Chris Mays, this is.
It's Donnie.
Don, okay. Okay.
Troy, if you'd step forward. I guess I get to do this.
Tom. Tom.
Oh, Tom.
Terry's his kid.
Troy, if you'd raise your right hand and state after me. I, Troy Kruger, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Public Works Director
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Public Works Director
of the City of Winter,
of the City of Winter,
Tripp County, South Dakota,
County of South Dakota,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
You're duly sworn.
Didn't sound very heartfelt.
That concludes recognition of visitors and communications from the City of Winter. City of Winter will now move on to department reports this meeting. First scheduled report is from the Public Safety Commissioner, Justin Day.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We'll go ahead and start with the 911 Center. Over 2,700 incidents were entered into the computer-aided dispatch system for this month. There was a little over 1,200 came in for 911, and a little over 5,500 came in for administrative calls. In dispatch news, Melissa Nelson Cook graduated last Friday from the 911 basic class up at LET. Next page, that was last month's notes, so disregard that and flip one more. When we look at the PSAP as a whole, that is the 2,747 different types of incidences, all broken down by number. The next page will be all the Winter Police Department's calls from May 15th to June 18th, and you can see there were 646 there, and then how they broke out into different categories. Switching over to the Winter Police Department, Officer Chris Aid graduated from the law enforcement training up in Pierre on June 2nd, so he is now fully certified as a South Dakota law enforcement officer. Feeding South Dakota was held June 2nd in Winter, and they will be back July 7th. Officer Fitzgerald has completed his 8th week of our FTO program, which is our in-house field training. So he's got roughly another 4 weeks until he completes the in-house portion of that field training. And then Officer Ben Connett started as a patrol officer on May 22nd. So thus far, he is through 4 weeks of FTO. We did do last week our annual firearms qualification with our handguns. The state always comes down once a year. They send an instructor down, and then we go through the classroom portion. Then everybody has to go out and qualify with the practical side of it, and everyone did pass. That's important. So then the PD would also like to remind the public to please lock your cars. We are now, since it's getting nice out, we are seeing an uptick yet again in people going through at night and getting into unlocked vehicles, taking things that are left in there, and also trying to get into vehicles that are locked. That is the #1 deterrent. Hit the button as you get out. It seems like they go for crimes of opportunity, so if it's unlocked, they're getting in much easier. The locked vehicles, they check, they see if it's locked, and they've seemed just to go down and find an easier target. And also, another reminder for the public, Dan, if you could put this in like bold letters, we continue to work on traffic throughout the construction zone as well as through other areas in town. When we have those meetings with the construction crews every week, Mark and I are trying to bring a lot more of those actual statistics of those stops made. So we've really ramped up the traffic enforcement. Over in corrections, 146 today, 150 for the month, and at 158 for the year. Had 70 transports over the last 30-day period. Then you can see the breakdown of the 24/7 program, 37 total participants, and how they break down through there. What's been going on in the jail is we had a meeting with Direct Technologies, which we are coming to a close on the project. We got kind of the final punch list put together, so they're scheduling that on their end, and then they're going to be coming back through and finishing all the little punch list things for the final completion of the project. You will see in there, they do have a pay request that is going to be with about a 10% holdback until the punch list and the intellectual property, which the city of Winter owns, is provided. Then we'll move forward for final payment. The new control room, control did get moved up to its new location, working out extremely well. Everybody's liking it. We've had a few little things to work through, and everybody's picking up with that, doing very well. Trinity Food Service is now in full operation. Things went as absolutely smooth as they could have gone. So we are very happy with the way things transitioned, and then we are continuing to schedule and hold interviews. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So it appears our numbers in the jail are trending down.
Yes.
What's going on?
Well,
Grasp on that?
what happened recently, the biggest why you'll see 150 for the month, is it was quite uncharacteristic, but we had 2 airlifts back to back, and due to that airlift, we lost roughly, I think Lori and I talked about it this morning, there were 49 that went out on those 2 airlifts. So we've been trying to get them moved back in.
Are our customers still clamoring for bed space?
Yes.
They're still, the business is still.
Oh, yeah, and
It's just
like
to
I
get
said,
the
normally
replacement.
the airlifts are not back to back like they were. So to take a 49 inmate hit, that was pretty big. So we've been slowly trying to get them back up, and I shouldn't say slowly, because we've been on the road a lot, but then with county courts and everything else going on, a lot of the county people have gone to court, and then they're getting released, and so, yeah, no, crime unfortunately isn't dipping. It's just trying to get everybody moving around the state to get more back in.
And how it affects things budgetarily? How are you trending in the budget?
Good. Our yearly average is actually budgeted for 156. We're currently at 158. Full transparency in that number, we're budgeted for so many county and so many federal, and our federal is trending higher than what it was budgeted for. So, no, budgetarily, we're still,
Okay.
yep.
I have one other question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not an officer of the law, obviously, but I've asked you before, Main Street. The
Yep.
Main Street transition, it appears that there's still some struggle in the community understanding the law, that if there's 2 painted yellow lines,
You are not wrong, Jeremy.
you're
I
not
have
allowed to
that.
cross.
You are not
That is
allowed.
against the law?
You are not allowed to cross the 2 double lines. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people when I see it, and I go in there, we try to educate, because as you know, education is a huge part of our job, and we have that conversation, and it's like, no, you can't do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, well, okay, tell your friends. So that's kind of how we've been handling it, but it seems to get better, and then we forget.
I've asked this question before, which I know the answer to, and I like asking these questions for the public. because they can hear my voice and hopefully it gets out there. The one place to do a U-turn on Main Street is,
up on that intersection by Sixth Street. Once you get past that stop sign, there are no more double lines, so if you need to, and it does not impede traffic, so if traffic is coming or coming up behind you, then you are allowed to make a U-turn there as long as there are no double lines.
at the,
Sixth and Main.
the rec center or whatever. Is that what it is?
Oh, the athletic club. Yep, the athletic club, yes.
That is the preferred place to turn around.
So to answer your question, Jeremy, the public, we will educate. If there are double lines, they are not allowed to cross them to turn onto the opposite side of the street.
Okay, thank you.
Should we maybe consider no U-turn signs at the intersections?
That has came up in question.
You could.
I don't think.
Is it legal to do a U-turn at the intersection?
There's no double lines there, there's no double lines there, but it would again have to not impede any traffic coming through and crossing there.
I don't think there's so much issue with the U-turns, is they see an open spot on the other side of the street, so they zip over
Right.
there.
And that's your biggest issue. That's what we see a lot of. If you're going south and see one on that side, they'll flip over if you're coming
Right in
north. and-
front of you.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing-
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing at the new parking spot at the post office as well. Southbound traffic turns left into the parking.
That is not painted double yellow.
I know
line.
it's not double, painted double lines, I agree, but they're crossing
Yeah.
traffic to get to the parking spot.
And that's the part you got to be careful of. You can't be cutting traffic off and doing that. You can't impede traveling motorists.
Okay.
Good discussion. Any other questions? Thanks, Justin.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Our next scheduled report is from Public Works Director Troy Kruger.
I will start with water and sewer. They have started to deploy some of our new metering equipment, some radios. And we did just receive a shipment of radios. That equipment is slowly starting to trickle in, so we'll put a big push on that here real shortly. We had several water main breaks over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We had to fix a valve on Madison Street, and it made a mess on Madison Street. But what happened there was the heavy vehicles, and there's a valve there that's right in the middle of the intersection. They were turning on that valve, and it actually turned the valve box and loosened up the valve itself, so it had a slow leak over the winter. Concrete pad around that valve box to fix that, to support that, the valve box and for the larger size vehicles turning on that. Fixed a hydrant leak at 4th and Van Buren. We installed a meter pit and a couple of hydrants for the 4-H grounds. The highway project's been taking up a lot of the guys' times. I will take a moment. There is going to be a shut-off on the highway from South County to Van Buren tomorrow morning. They're going to start that at about 8 o'clock, and it'll basically just affect people right on the highway there. But they're going to pressure test that section of water main that's been installed. So once that pressure test has been done, we're not anticipating too many more interruptions in water because we've put in a crossover now, and we've put in enough valves that when they go back on the highway on the other side, and we should just be able to shut off the intersections, and we shouldn't have any customers out of water during those as we switch over to the south side of the highway project. So I hope
Would it be
we're
a morning or afternoon shut off, do you think, or all day?
we're going to start it at like about 8:30 in the morning, and we're going to try and have everybody back on by about 11.
That will be communicated to everybody on there.
Yeah, Mike Flockus and Mark went door to door.
There's been some issues on that.
Yep. Water service leak in the park, monthly water samples, meter readings. They helped the street department with some of their leaks they had over this winter, some asphalt cutouts, and we repaired those this last week. And we had a storm sewer that collapsed on 7th in front of the admin building for the school, so we had to fix that one, fill that hole back in, and and do an asphalt repair there. And then pool's been good. We've had a lot of participation up at the pool, a lot of kids using the pool. Everything's going pretty smooth up there, spraying for mosquitoes. And the Adams Street water main project, we started that today, so those customers will be temped in during this week, and we'll try and knock that project out this week. For sure, have it done by next week. Streets and sanitation, dig outs and repairs. They spent a lot of time getting that transfer station up and running totes and dumpsters around and trying to make this transition as smooth as possible. Sweeper's been running, hauled grass for the parks departments, a lot of vehicle work. We've done a lot of miscellaneous concrete work, especially on Main Street. We have one block left. That would be from the highway to 3rd Street. We still have a couple of areas in there to repair, but we're pretty much done with Main Street for miscellaneous concrete. They did some traffic control for hot summer nights, helping the water department out, and then that Madison Street repair was a big deal. Parks and Cemetery, mowing and weed eating. They did a couple of weeks of mowing for code violations, working on the backstop at Bailey's Field, and I believe that's done, and that field is back in working order. I think they used it this weekend.
They're putting the net up today.
Oh, okay.
I saw that. That was quite the process.
I think they'll have it going they'll have that field back in service this week. Fall season's in full swing, so we've had a lot of baseball, a lot of tournaments, a lot of ball games, a lot of softball games. Father's Day tournament, we had a regional sophomore tournament, I believe. They started spraying the streets for the weeds in the streets and the sidewalks. Funerals, sprinkler work, and watering. We were watering the cemetery. We're watering all the ball fields now. Main Street flowers. There was like 11 or 12 trees again that in coordination with the booster or whatever, the Rotary Club. We planted another 11 trees around town, and then we've got a lot of new trees anyway, so that's always a big deal this time of year, is to keep plenty of water on those trees. And they trying to do something over there at the light plant with their weeds. Light department, meter swaps. They were doing some work up in the McDonald's park. They bored in electric lines and they trenched in a couple of sections of that. They set some basements, pulled wire, and then got them up there to clean up the trench work. And then Ray and Kurt been working with load management. We're kind of in our final chapter, I guess, with Landis & Gear as far as training and all that kind of stuff goes. So we're working on testing some load management equipment. So we've done a couple of installations, and we're just making sure that equipment's all working right and dependable, and that the system is working as it should. So that is a big deal right now. We had some traffic light issues. I know you guys probably heard that as council members about a month ago. People were wondering why the northbound lane on Main Street, that northbound intersection, there was a bad loop of wire in there. So we had to get Muth Electric back over here, and then they did repair that, so that's fixed now. Ray did some work up in that transfer station for us. He moved some power wiring to another panel so we could, one panel was overloaded, so we did some switching around up there. He installed a light in the pit so that the drivers can see where they're backing up to when they're returning with the trailer from hauling our garbage to Puckwana. Wired in a compressor. We're using odor eliminator and a masking agent up there. Also spraying with a insect repellent to keep that building smelling decent, so that the people that are bringing their recyclable materials up there don't have to smell garbage. And I think it's worked out pretty good. The smell is not bad at all. Helped the light department with some lights and wiring issues at the McDonald's park. Like I said, Kurt and Ray have been working with Power Center and testing the load management stuff. And then Also worked on some door openers for us out there at that transfer station. Any questions?
You know what's going on at the down part, how much longer it's feasible, or
The
the ball field?
Yeah, the sod is supposed to be on its way. Sprinklers are done. We're just waiting on the guy to deliver the sod. Marty's got to do a little leveling out there, and then we're ready for it.
Was that your
All right, thank you.
That's my question.
Thanks, Troy. Our final report is from the Finance Officer, Chandra Phillips.
So we're almost done with ExecuTime. I can feel the end in sight, which I'm super excited for. We just had another training last week with all of our supervisors. ExecuTime is the new clock-in system. You'll see that we've got a clock-in station right outside of these doors. That way anyone in the building can utilize that station. We are doing our final pilot, which is our final test, this pay period, starting on Sunday. All employees will be clocking into the test environment, with the exception of pool employees. And that's just based on the fact that they don't have a computer or a test clock in up there. So all employees will be clocking in on the new system. And then we will be working with the supervisors to get their approvals done on time so that we can get them uploaded and into the payroll system. We did our first upload on Friday with Encode and found some errors, which is why we do all the testing environment and everything, and those have been fixed. So just small little things. We had lieutenants at the same level as supervisors, so lieutenants would approve their time card and then the supervisor wasn't able to see it to approve it. Now we're fixing that so that the supervisor can still approve their lieutenant or their foreman or their assistant. I attended a training 2 weeks ago up in Pierre for HR. Within that training was the South Dakota Department of Labor. There was a gentleman there from Bismarck that spoke with us about multiple labor laws, things that we are going to pass on to our department heads just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, payroll laws that we're making sure are implemented as well. Budget-wise, revenue was sent out this afternoon to all of you, so you should all have that in your emails. And that's based off of the information that the mayor and I put together a couple weeks ago. Expense is ready. There was just some numbers that I wanted to clarify tomorrow morning before I send that out, once the other person is back and I can get that information from them. I have all of the debt services and interest and personal services plugged in. And once I get those corrected numbers, I'll be able to plug in workman's comp too. Workman's comp is budgeted or based off of your budgeted personal services numbers, and so that's how we get that number. And then I have a report for the fuel that was used in 2022. And so we'll be working on plugging those numbers in, how much each department is using for gas and diesel, and plugging that in. A letter went out to all of the alcohol license establishments from myself and the city attorney. So ultimately, it was just a letter reminding every establishment that holds a license what the South Dakota statute is that deals with alcohol. So we gave them the statute. We told them that don't be surprised if local law enforcement comes in just to verify this. I received several phone calls through the office of several different things. And so just kind of reminding everyone what the rules are and that licenses can be revoked by city council. Obviously, there is a whole process that we have to follow. One of the processes is notification that we are looking into them. And at this point in time, no one's specific. We're just looking at all establishments, making sure all establishments are following the rules. And then if after a certain time period, we find that there are establishments that are breaking those rules, we have to give them 30 days notification of a public hearing in front of council. So if you get any backlash, all of that is stated in that letter. Potentially employees can call law enforcement if they need some backup, different things like that. Because that was some of the complaints we were getting was maybe employees didn't feel comfortable to kick people out of establishments type of deal. think that was it on alcohol. iPads. I believe all of you have your iPads. As of right now, that is how your council agendas are coming to you now. The reason, one of the reasons, is because I'm spending in the finance office alone $600 a month in copy counts. Some of that is because of agendas. Some of our agendas have been quite long. Some of them aren't too bad. Today's is not too bad, but in an effort to try to cut down some of that, that's $7,200 plus every year that I'm spending in just copies. And that's just my department. For the most part, just my department. Other people do use our copy machine. And then I just wanted to make it known that there are 2 grants that the city has applied for. Actually, we have 3 grants that are open right now. One is our FEMA grant, and that one I have 2 more weeks to complete. Hope to have everything pretty well submitted to FEMA, and then they'll review it on Thursday. And then any corrections and errors that I need to fix, then I'll have a week and a half to get that completed. And that is for the snowstorm that happened in December. That will reimburse airport fund, streets fund, and electric fund. So that will help with some of those fuel overages that we had because of that storm. The Parks Grant, according to the state level, the federal level is meeting at the end of next week. So we should have an answer on the grant for Bailey's Field by the end of next week, is what I have been told, but they have pushed back before. And then finally, the sanitation grant, that meeting is on June 29th, so the end of next week is when that grant is. So those are our 3 grants that are out there and that we are waiting on answers on. Questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chandra. That'll conclude department reports. City of Winter has no bid openings for this evening. There are no public hearings, nor are there any Board of Adjustments. City of Winter will now enter into old business. There are 2 items that will be considered. Item number 1, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move second reading for passage and approval of ordinance number 1051, a city sanitation service to provide for certain outlaw utility customers.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Councilman Schramm has placed on second reading for passage and approval ordinance 1051, a city sanitation service ordinance to provide for certain outlaw utility customers. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Klent. Floor is open to comment or question. Seeing no comment or question, I'll call a roll call vote. Councilman Klent?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
Councilman Frank?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
Yes.
And Councilman Schramm.
All right,
The ayes have it. This motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 2, under old business. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve second reading for passage and approval of ordinance 1053, an ordinance establishing authority to set rates for the swimming pool.
Is there a second to this motion?
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Klunt has placed on second reading for passage and approval ordinance 1053. This is an ordinance establishing authority to set the rates for the swimming pool. Councilman Schramm has seconded the motion. Floor is open to comments or questions.
So I think I missed the first meeting, if I could
Councilman
go.
Clay.
I think I missed the first meeting when this got put on first reading. And I'm not on that committee, obviously, but my question was about putting the pool rates on CPI. And, you know, I know we're putting everything on CPI. Our employees are on CPI, we're putting everything on CPI. I just really question whether putting the pool rates was warranted to have that part be on CPI. I like everything else about the ordinance, about the council setting the rates and revisiting and everything. The CPI was just my question, and that's why I wanted to bring that up now.
I think the
Councilman Clay.
ordinance does say that That's up to council yearly.
Oh, it is?
We can vote.
Yeah,
not
I
to
didn't-
take the-
We can vote no on that, so we
It's
don't
on
have to
CPI.
increase.
Okay.
But at any time, we could vote not to enforce that CPI increase.
All right. As long as the committee's fine with it and comfortable, I am. I didn't catch that part.
So in essence,
That
we
was
can
why,
set the
because there'll
rate.
be times when 50 cents isn't gonna be
Yeah.
worth taking a rate increase.
It just becomes 23 cent accounting nightmare, you know?
The way the ordinance read, it would round to the nearest quarter
Round it up to a quarter, yeah.
is,
But
Any
we
oth-
don't have to take the increase any given
No,
year.
correct. No,
All right, thank you.
that's my understanding.
any other comment? Councilman Clint?
When would we discuss that? Just so it doesn't get forgotten and
So those rates are going to be set by council, and that's going to be a revenue now for the, in general fund, and it falls under the water department. So I would say there's a couple different places. Most comfortable fit is when we're talking in the water department. Mark has supervisory duties over the pool, and that would be with the Water and Sewer Committee.
The way
And wouldn't
you did
that
it
likely be in February or March?
Ideally, ideally, we do, like Chandra and I had set the revenues for the city of Winter this year in, I think it was late April, probably May. In recent years, we've done that in April. So late March, Councilman Schramm, early April, I think is a good time for council to start looking ahead. Probably right after we've conducted interviews for the pool staff. It would be a good time to start
So
looking
we
at
don't
that.
drop the ball and end up in June, oh my God, we didn't change the rates.
Yep. Council, any other comment or question?
Mr. Mayor, I would just clarify one thing there, and that is that, please understand that it's council's opportunity to make a specific motion to not use the CPI increase. If
Otherwise,
council-
it's automatic.
If council takes no action, there will be a CPI increase. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other comment? Okay, hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Frank,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
Yes.
Councilman Schramm,
Aye.
and Councilman Clunt.
yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. That concludes old business.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We talk about CPI a lot. Would you clarify for the public what CPI is? I don't know if
Sure.
we can cover that.
Sure. CPI is the Consumer Price Index, and in layman terms, that's the inflation that we are experiencing here in our country. And we use the United States Department of Labor
Correct.
for our CPI number. We've based all of our contracts off that. We are basing utilities off that and revenue rates now in the water department. In 2019, CPI was 2.4%. 2020, it was 1.8%. And since that time, this year, it's we used a calculation of 7%. The number we will use for next year is 6.5%. And I've been watching it so far through the month of May, and I think we're trending right now about 3.9 or 4% for next year. A lot of arguments that that number doesn't accurately reflect the inflation costs that are being incurred by families across the country. They say just go to the grocery store and you can see inflation will hit harder than the 6.5%. It's based on several different categories to come up with a mean number for all different areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Councilman. New business. Tonight, there are 9 items to be considered under new business. Item number 1, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the pay request number 9 for PCN Highway Project in the amount of $89,360.26.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Frank has made a motion to pay request number 9 for PCN X05H, the highway project, in the amount of $89,360.26. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. The floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of paying...
Do we have to roll call that because it's dollars and cents? We do not?
Does not.
Is part of the contract.
All
You
right.
can request it if you'd like, Councilman. Okay. Chair will call the question. All those in favor of paying pay request number 9 for PCN X05H, the highway project, in the amount of $89,360.26, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 6-0. Item number 2, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-13, a resolution setting rates for membership cards at the community center.
I would second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve Resolution 2023-13. This is a resolution setting rates for membership cards at the community center. Councilman Schramm has seconded this motion. Floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor and council, what this does is it sets certain rates for anyone wanting to get access into our community center. It sets the rate at $0 for those who live within city limits and pay property taxes within city limits. It sets the rate at $10 for the lifetime of the card, which we check annually, and then $10 for replacement of any lost card. And that doesn't matter if you're in city limits or not, it's $10 replacement card. The cards themselves cost $7, $8, so this does help retrieve some of that cost. So that's what it's setting.
Council, are there any questions on this resolution?
So the people that have the card that open the door, are they responsible for the damages?
Yep.
What if somebody comes in, I don't know, if they slide in or whatever when they're open it, or if they look, they're still responsible?
So I have cameras in there too.
Okay.
So yes, am I going to assume that if the damage happened between 8 and 7 and Jeremy's card was used, but Brad snuck in and did some damage under your card, I'm gonna still go back and look at cameras just to verify. But ultimately, the folks that have the cards right now are very policing of this.
The
of
pickleballers
place.
ran out 3 underage kids who did not have cards.
How'd they get in? Come through here then?
They didn't pull the door shut tight,
Oh.
so they snuck in.
We are addressing the doors closing.
Okay, all right. That's what I was getting at. Because if I had a card and somebody snuck in damage, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah. No, I would still go back and review.
If your
All right.
picture shows up on that camera, you're getting nailed.
So city residents, the card is free.
Correct.
They just come to the office and apply?
Anyone can come to the office and apply.
And
Yep.
apply, okay.
And the hours for that card need to be stated.
The hours for the card are the same as our city parks, which, I believe that is 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Is that correct, Justin? The park hours?
Yes, 6 a.m.
Yeah, so that's the same as what this is 6 a.m. to, huh? Or is it 10?
It's
City
10.
Park, City Park is different than all the other parks.
I think City Park is 11. Well, we base it off of
City
that.
Park is 11, some other
Yeah.
parks say 10 or 10:30.
Okay.
Baseball fields and that is 10.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we base it off City Park then. It was 11 o'clock.
I'm
So,
in favor of that.
I am too. Council, any other comments or questions that must be shared publicly? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Councilman Frank.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Councilman Blunt.
Yes.
And Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 6-0. Item number 3. Council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1054, an ordinance amending peddler's ordinance.
Is there a second to this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Clunt has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1054. This is an ordinance amending the peddler's ordinance in the city of Winter. That motion was Councilman Clunt, seconded by Councilman Schramm. Floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Mr. Dennison.
Thank you. For the sake of council and the public, this is pretty much a comprehensive rewrite of the ordinances that cover the solicitors, transient merchants, mobile food vendors, and the peddlers. And just hitting a few of the main points so that I think this will answer anybody's questions that they've got. Number one, there's no cost to them to apply for the permit as long as they do it like they're supposed to. For most of them, it's a matter of applying with the chief of police. There are some who, for instance, have a brick and mortar store here in town, but maybe are going to be participating in an event where they're going to be using a mobile situation. Those will come into the finance officer and will apply, but most of the rest of these apply through the chief of police. There are a few main prohibitions included at the beginning here that talks about if people have a sign up on their door or on their gate approaching their property that says no peddlers allowed, you can't go up there if you're a peddler. You gotta leave them alone. If you, as the property owner, asks the peddler to leave your property and they refuse, they're in violation for not following your request. If they provide any false or fraudulent information in the information where they're applying to get their peddler's permit, they can be in trouble with the law and can be charged with a misdemeanor for that as well. And whenever they're actually out on site doing their business, they're required to display the permit to show people of the city of Winter that they have in fact registered with, whether it's chief of police or the finance officer, so everybody knows that they're in compliance. Please note that this does not apply to people that are involved in charitable, educational, or religious organizations. Classic example, the Girl Scouts want to go sell their cookies, they don't have to have a permit. The Boy Scouts want to have a lemonade stand, they don't have to have a permit. Things like that. If you're doing a bona fide garage sale up to 4 times a year, 4 times, 4 days per event, you don't need a license to do that. If you're one of these folks that grow your own garden produce and you're sitting in your pickup along the highway selling it during that season, you don't need a permit for that.
Mr. Jensen, I thought it was interesting, though, is that state law or is this ordinance that if it's grown in South Dakota?
That's actually state law.
Okay.
We're just basically tagging on to state law for clarification of that.
And that's been the law for quite a while.
A long time.
Because I know there's a guy that came up from Springview for years and years and years.
Sure.
But I didn't know it was law until I read it. And
Yeah,
I wondered.
And those folks from Springview can come up, they just need to get their permit.
Okay.
They're certainly welcome to come up and apply for a permit. Yep. And so, no reason we won't see some of the same people here that we've always seen year after year, selling their products out there. The other thing I want to make clear is that obviously transient or mobile or whatever, this doesn't apply to your regular business people who normally visit retail businesses here in town or visit the garage where the mechanics buy their tools from the traveling tool salesman. Those folks are not covered by this. They've already got a traveling business license for whatever they're dealing in. This really is intended to cover those transient peddlers that otherwise come and go without anybody even being aware of them unless they cause a problem. Well, now we're going to make sure, we hope, that they will all be licensed and we'll know who they are. It gives them an opportunity to share their information with the chief of police. So the chief of police, if it's somebody we don't know, he can certainly spend a little bit of time checking them out, find out where they've been most recently, check with the police there. Have they had any problems with them, things like that. Type of things they do regularly, they'll be checking up just like that. That's basically the sum and substance of the type of requirements involved here. There are obviously are some specific parts as far as, for instance, if somebody is doing a mobile food vendor, such as like an ice cream truck, okay? They can go into a residential area here in Winter, South Dakota. The requirements are that they can't be blocking the street, and if they're in a residential area, they're not going to be parked in one spot for more than a half hour at a time without going to a different spot on a different block, okay? They want to make sure that nobody's setting up shop, staying in one place in a residential area. On the other hand, if you're in the industrial or the commercial zones, find a place off-street, whether it's a parking lot, things like that, you can set up, as long as you have permission from the property owner there, set up and go ahead and participate in the event, so. Yes, sir.
So, did this really change anything, or did you just clarify a lot of what we had or what has been on the books?
I think a lot of it was there. I think a lot of it probably needed some clarification or maybe a little better definition so that it answers the questions that otherwise weren't being answered. But this was pretty much, it's a comprehensive rewrite. But it's taken the same subject matter.
The way I just tried to break it down for layman, see if I understand this layman. If you're coming from out of town and you're going to sell a widget door to door, you go to the police department.
Correct.
If you live here and you're going to sell your widget or wherever, you got to go to the Shander's office.
Correct.
So if we have the bling fling and they're going to have their thing there, they have to come to Shander's office.
Correct.
Which had been on the books for the years past, and it had not been enforced. The way I remember reading the ordinance, how many ever months ago, was it was on the books that they had to go to the police office and get that,
Police
but not
office.
to the finance office. You had to get it, it just had not been enforced in the past.
Right.
Is that state law or is it by ordinance?
That's by ordinance.
Okay.
Now, the state law does come into play here because they're required under our ordinance to also comply with state law, which includes sales tax for the folks that are subject to sales tax.
Well, my question is, Mr. Jensen, is legally by state law, would there be any way we could exclude those folks that we're going to participate in, such as the bling fling example, to not have to have this form filled out?
Oh,
Pardon me?
if you want them to not have to fill out a form, that's totally your choice.
Okay.
Now, they still have an obligation to comply with sales tax license.
Yeah.
But if you choose to allow these folks as business people to come conduct business in the city of Winter without any registration or controls on the local municipal level, that's council's choice.
Okay.
Since we've been enforcing this, though, there have been businesses we have found that are not using a South Dakota sales tax. They were just taking money.
Councilman Schramm?
Does this new ordinance or rewrite of the ordinance, doesn't it not also regulate food trucks?
It does.
And where they can locate? Okay.
Mobile food vendors, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So if I was gonna sell the bird feeders that I put together in Jeff's Gunbolt parking lot, I would need to come see you to get a license,
Yep.
permit, whatever.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think the key to this is that it's free. It does not cost anybody to do this. That was through committee we discussed in length, is to make sure that it does not cost anybody. You just gotta fill out the form.
Councilman Hockett?
And it's also in the city's interest to understand who is doing this, who's behind this. We need to know that to protect our citizens from scammers and everything else out there. So it's got a lot of validity, and when I read it, it made a lot of sense. It looks like you combined a few things and made it really forthright and forward so that everybody understands and everybody's on the same page. And that's what we needed, and I think you hit it with this ordinance, so.
I like the clarification and all the clearing simply clarifying it. What my understanding was of the ordinance previously was to catch the peddlers of the town, to make sure those people were compliant. The part that I have questions about, and as the finance officer stated, we have found out and determined that some of the local people may not have been in compliance previously, therefore we're losing sales tax and whatever. But I understand and I appreciate the work that the ordinance committee's put in on this. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call for a roll call vote when you hold the vote on this one, okay?
Duly noted. Any other comments?
One question.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Say, for instance, somebody comes into town and the city office is closed. Can they get it from the police, the chief of police,
Yes.
or the police department? I
Yes.
mean, to give fluctuation on times, because it's not always gonna work, you may be closed. On a Saturday morning, they may come in, wanna peddle and stuff, just so there's an option there.
Yeah, and the option always says the chief of police or his designee. So
Okay.
anybody that he designates down in the police department, they're gonna make sure they've got 24/7 coverage. If
Okay.
people need them on the weekends, they'll have somebody that makes it available.
And just,
Mr. Day?
we had a vendor fill one out here last week. It took approximately maybe 3 to 5 minutes for this person to fill it out, but we always make sure that when it comes to the police department, we always share that with the finance office, the same part of things to make sure they can get there.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of communication on it, and if our office is closed, then obviously then the chief of police or his designee would be my designee. The only time that time frame does come into play is if a mobile food truck is wanting to park in one of our parks. They actually have to petition for a public hearing with city council, so we need about 3 weeks for that to happen.
That's a good point to bring up.
It
And
is. I'm glad, I wish I would have remembered to bring it up ahead of time, but to clarify, because there was some concern about if they want to set up in the city park as a mobile food vendor, are we going to have any problems with that? Well, the main concern that was raised is the fact that we have contracted individuals who bid for a contract for concessions up at, whether it's at Leahy or out at the softball complex, whatever. Wherever those contracts are in place, we made a provision in the ordinance here that says, like she says, 3 weeks ahead of time, if you want to be doing a mobile food vendor in those same places, one of those places, then we need to give notice ahead of time so that our contractor has the right to either say, I don't have a problem with it, or they say, hey, listen, I run a contract, I think I'm entitled to at least have some protection here. Gives them the opportunity to make a short hearing in front of council, and council decides.
Mr. Day?
I just want to make this abundantly clear for the public as well. anybody that does fill one of those out, there is some information on there that could be absolutely sensitive. So when we do have this, and I say we share with the finance office, we share with the finance officer, all that information is kept very safe, very private, it's held under lock and key. So if anyone does fill those out, that information is not just laid on desks or shared willy-nilly with anybody that can come by. We treat it as the sensitivity that it deserves, just so the general public understands that too. We're not just throwing stuff around. It's all very tracked and procedural and everything kept very safe.
Any other comment?
Mr. Mayor, I thank you that I'm not on the ordinance committee anymore. I'm not beating on those that are on the ordinance committee.
I think they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think the exclusionary part should have went just a little bit further, so the little neighbor kid didn't have to get one to have a lemonade stand.
He does not need to.
They're good there, right then, because you used the example, the Boy Scout selling lemonade didn't have to have it, but the little kid selling lemonade is
No,
good.
does not need to.
Okay.
And I believe that is talked about in state law too, that is not needed for lemonade stands.
Unless they're making thousands of dollars on their lemonade.
Unless that's really good lemonade.
Have you seen the price of cups lately?
Yeah. Council, no other comments or questions? All right, we will implement a roll call vote. Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Frank,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
And no.
Councilman Schramm,
Aye.
Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
and Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass with a majority 5-1 vote. Item number 4. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would love to make a motion to place on first reading of ordinance 1055, an ordinance amending the Jake Brake ordinance.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
It's a popular ordinance. Councilman Clay has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1055. This is an ordinance amending the Jake Brake ordinance. The second was by Councilman Frank. The floor is open to comments or questions. I will turn the floor over to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, the ordinance is to clarify, because our existing ordinance in this regard had some language that really made it questionable whether, in fact, you could enforce anything at all unless it was only because of a faulty exhaust system. This clarifies that if you're using a Jake Brake in town and it's making excessive noise, you can be stopped and given a ticket for it, because that will be a violation of this ordinance. So that's the only clarification. We've had several complaints in town to the police department and to otherwise with regard to some of the excessive noise that some of these Jake Brakes have been causing. People literally talking about how their windows will shake, things like that. So we were asked, I was asked by the police department to seek the clarification. I checked it out, I put this clarification together, and it should provide what we need.
Questions?
So, do we have dynamic braking signs up around town? I have not noticed them.
Yes.
They are there.
Every sign
They
coming
are.
into town has the.
Okay, I have not noticed them before.
Yep.
Okay,
But our ordinance wasn't enforceable the way it was written.
I understand that part. I just didn't remember seeing the signs, and I've heard that we're short on signs in winter, so if we didn't have any, I was gonna request that they're installed.
They are already there.
Okay, I just haven't seen them.
Is there a difference between Jake
But
Brake
there's like 5
and exhaust
signs.
brake?
Councilman Sprinkle's got the floor.
And what?
Jake Brakes and exhaust brake.
I've not heard it called the exhaust brake, maybe they are.
I've heard it called that
Okay.
before.
The
Yeah,
ordinance actually doesn't use the word Jake. It uses dynamic engine
Okay,
braking,
so that would cover.
which covers everything.
Okay.
Correct.
Same
There's
thing.
back pressure on it.
Okay.
It's, yeah, back pressure from the engine is exactly right, yeah.
Noise.
Hearing no further discussion, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of placing on first reading Ordinance 1055, an ordinance amending the Jake Break ordinance. Would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 6-0.
I thank you, council.
Item 5.
Enforce it.
Council, is there a motion?
I will make the motion. A contract addendum with Engel Trucking for hauling garbage to Puckwana and have the mayor sign it.
Is there a second to this motion?
I can second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to approve the contract addendum with Engel Trucking for hauling garbage to Puckwana and have the mayor sign it. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clay. Floor is open to comment or question.
I had a question, Mr. Jensen. This specifically says Engel Trucking, but could we have just made a blanket and not put the name in there that if that contract changes in 6 months or in 6 years, we wouldn't have to do it again?
We won't have to do it again. We'll change a couple of words on the computer.
I bet we will have the new contract
But-
say the
but-
words that this says.
But for the record, when a contract is between the city and an individual business, the individual business needs to be named in that contract.
Okay, all right.
And just to clarify for the council and for public, we did go through the process to select Engel Trucking as the trucking company that is hauling our garbage to the landfill at Puckwana. What I didn't do and what we didn't think about until Mr. Engel and his attorney got in touch with me last week and said, you know, DOT likes to make sure that truck drivers are responsible for the maintenance on their trailers. He says, I don't own that trailer. You guys with the city of Winter do. I said, not a problem. What do you need? You just need something for us to acknowledge the fact that we're responsible for maintenance. He goes, yep.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Frank?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
Yes.
Councilman Schramm?
Aye.
Councilman Klett?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Item number 6, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to surplus the old scoreboard from Leahy Bowl and authorize the selling to another government agency.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'd second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Klett has made a motion to surplus the old scoreboard from Leahy Bowl and authorize the selling to another government agency. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Schramm. Floor is open to comments or questions. Councilman Klett.
When we surplus something, don't we typically surplus it to anybody?
You can.
We can give it to another entity with another government entity without bids or anything.
If you were to surplus this to just anyone, then you'd have to have it appraised. If you go to another government agency, which is the same thing we did with the, I'm gonna say the acronym wrong, SBCA gear from the fire department, and we gave it to Witten Fire Department. So this is the same relationship that we're going through without having to have it appraised.
Other questions?
Do we know who we're giving it to?
There is one particular community that has reached out and has expressed an interest in this, so we will reach back out to them and let them know that it has been surplused. And when Parks has an opportunity to, I think they were gonna cut it off with a blowtorch at the beam, at the ground, they would like to be here just to lay it down and take it off to their community.
Don't we have to approve it? It says authorized to sell.
That's a good point.
I mean,
You can either sell it for $1 if that's what you want to do. So I didn't have the particulars when I created this. If we've sold it for $1, then when that happens, then we have a purchase agreement drafted with that government agency. I wasn't sure if it was purchase or just a giveaway, so.
I guess we don't know either.
They're looking just, they have a similar scoreboard.
No,
And-
it's the same one we've talked about for a year.
I
Correct.
thought we'd already made this motion like 2 years ago.
We talked about it, but we never went
committee.
through the actual surplus.
It was a committee conversation.
It was a committee conversation, and that community's representative is here every week umpiring, and he brought the question back to the table and said, our community would like that, and it was just a giveaway at that
That's only
time.
held up there with a few U-boats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Did you put it up?
I put it up, yeah.
And it's sat there that long?
Oh, shucks.
So then, Mr. Mayor,
just U-boats
if
that
it's
hold
just
it
to be
together.
given away, then the motion should say gifting instead of selling, if that is what council
Authorize
wants
the
to say.
gifting to another government agency.
It has $0 value to the city of Winter.
It does not.
It won't work. And
Not for
You can't buy
us.
a part to fix it.
Councilman Clunt, would you
Yeah,
amend?
I'll amend it. I just wanted clarification of what we were doing with it.
It's gifting to another government agency. Councilman Clunt has amended his motion to indicate a gifting.
Did I second that?
Councilman
I
Schramm?
would second that.
Okay, thank you. Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clay,
Yes.
Councilman Schramm,
Aye.
Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
and Councilman Frank.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 7, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjust the wages of Chris Aid for passing his LEC training to $21.98.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Frank has made a motion to adjust the wages of Officer Chris Dade for passing their LAC training to $21.98 per hour. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. Floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of adjusting the wages of Officer Chris Aid for passing their LAC training to $21.98 an hour, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 8, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve pay request number 1 to Direct Technologies for law enforcement IT upgrade project in the amount of $345,320.05.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve pay request number 1 to Direct Technologies for the law enforcement IT upgrade project in the amount of $345,328.05. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of paying pay request number 1 to Direct Technologies, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion passes unanimously 6-0. Final item tonight are the claims for the City of Winter. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the claims.
Thank you, sir. With the addition of the pay request, or are they in there?
One isn't, but if you say with the addition of the pay request.
With the addition of the pay request, Councilman?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to pay the claims for the City of Winter with the addition of the pay request sent through tonight. That motion was seconded by Councilman Frank. Floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair calls the question. All those in favor of paying the claims for the City of Winter, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion passes unanimously 6-0. That concludes new business. The City of Winter has no executive sessions for this evening's meeting. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to this motion? Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to adjourn at 7:45 PM. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Frank. All those in favor of adjourning, would you please say aye? Aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, this motion passes unanimously 6-0.